here we have the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you," that were put on the bottom. And what's interesting, some of you may be seeing this when you're looking at this, that maybe a certain image pops out at you as you're looking at this. There's a certain something that I see in here, I can point that out, and other people might see something different because I know I've heard different things. But to me, you can almost see a figure here. And to me, it looks like the figure's actually holding a gun. Some people see a face in there. I know that Sarah had told me that earlier when I was talking to her. She saw a face and it looked like a pirate hat and whatnot. But I think it's very interesting what kind of image pops up associated with the words that were on the bottom. But the thing that I want to stress more so is that there's no coherence here. It's just chaotic, and it has to do with the energy of the words that are on there. He also took some samples from samples of spring water. This one's from Eija, Japan. And again, what he sees in sources of water that are pure or healthy, he sees that these types of formations always come up. These snowflake-like formations that always have structure, geometry, symmetry, all that type of stuff. This is another example of spring water from Sanbuichi, Usui, Japan. And again, we see the same thing. Now, if he takes a sample of water, this one coming from the Yodo River in Japan, and this one's passing through most of the major cities in Kasai, which means it's picking up all the junk as it's going through. And again, this is what he's getting. This is what he gets when he creates the crystal. This particular crystal was formed at the Fujiwara Dam. Again, obviously it's not the most pristine water that he's taken the example from. But what I want to point out here, and what you're going to see, is an example of consciousness effect over physical reality. What Mr. Emoto did was he took a sample of the dam water, which he made a crystal of, which is this. Then he had a Shinto Buddhist monk do a healing prayer over the water. Did a prayer for about an hour. He took another sample from the same exact source and made a crystal of it, and this is what he got. You can see the difference. It's the same exact water in the same exact location, almost at the same exact time, only an hour difference. And the only difference being that this one was taken after there was a healing prayer done over the water. And again, people are looking at this. If you're looking at this area right here, I think you're going to see something very interesting. To me, that looks like a figure, somebody with arms and a head, and it looks like they actually have a halo over their head. So this is really incredible stuff that he was coming out at. Some of this stuff was being talked about in the movie with the bleep. And I just think that it's very interesting and shows a connection between consciousness and our physical reality. The next thing I want to bring up is these two guys, Dean Radin and Roger Nelson. Roger Nelson is the director of the Global Consciousness Project. I guess I can read this. The Global Consciousness Project is an international multidisciplinary collaboration of scientists, engineers, artists, and others. Data is continuously collected from a global network of physical random number generators located in 65 host sites around the world. The archive contains more than 10 years of random data and parallel sequences of synchronized 200-bit trials every second. Okay, what does that mean? What Dean Radin was doing back in the 60s is he was taking random number generators and he was sitting people down in front of them to see if they could affect the outcome of the numbers. Meaning the random number generators were either generating a 0 or 1. And he wanted to see if the people's consciousness would actually have an effect on whether or not the computer was picking zeros or ones. See, like when you flip a coin and you flip it 100 times, you're usually going to get 50 heads and 50 tails. That's statistically what you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting close to that. You're not always going to get 50-50, but it's usually going to be pretty close. Well, that's what the random number generators are doing. They're doing the same thing. They're just glorified coin flippers, basically. And so that's the stuff that Dean Reagan was doing early on. But then they were thinking, well, because they did notice that people were having an effect on it, their consciousness was having an effect. It wasn't coming up as random. It was becoming more ordered when people were concentrating on it. So they said, well, I wonder if a huge event, if a major world event, and mass amount of people are concentrating on one thing, would it have the same effect? And so that's why they set up these random number generators in different areas of the world, and when some major event happens, they see if it's being affected. I'm just showing you one example here today. There's many on the website. There's over 300, as a matter of fact. And what you're seeing here is a graph. What you see here, where the 0 is, let's say that that 0 represents a 50-50 coin toss. That's what statistically what you would get from random numbers. All these black lines are the 60 surrounding days from 9/11, 2001, 9/11. All these black lines are statistically what you would find randomly from the generators when there's no effect going on in them. This red line is what happened on 9/11. This red line clearly shows that it's being orderly. It's going away from the chaos. And what I'm trying to say here, because of all the information here about the 60 surrounding days, is that you don't see anything close to that. That there seems to be some kind of effect that we're having with our mass consciousness. And you only see about 4 hours here, deviation with the red line. That goes on for 24 hours. That's unprecedented. That can't be explained. They can't explain it. A lot of people are trying to knock this down and debunk the stuff. But when you look at the information, you look at the surrounding 60 days, nothing is even close to it. And this thing did that for 24 hours. And what's even more interesting about it is that this red line started to deviate away from what was normal 2 hours before the towers were hit. So somehow this information is in the mass consciousness, and somehow we even know this without knowing it before it happens. And that's something that they can't explain, but the information is there. And if you go to the website, like I said, there's 300 plus different examples of this type of stuff. What I want to move on to now is this guy here, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He started something called Transcendental Meditation. But what I want to point out is that he earned a degree in physics from Allahabad University in India, and even though he was a spiritual leader, he did have a scientific or physics background based on certain things that he was saying. And he introduced the Transcendental Meditation technique back in 1955. Oops, sorry, going backwards. And he established the Maharishi International University, now known as the Maharishi University of Management, in 1973. That's in Iowa. And he carried a message that he said would rid the world of all unhappiness and discontent. And what he said was, now every government can achieve national invincibility and secure the safety and well-being of its citizens. Such a government will naturally gain the permanent support of its people and thereby secure its own longevity and dignity as a stable, sovereign government.